My name is Anna. Everyone says slacking off is a sin, but I think they just haven't reached my level of exhaustion. At my last job, I pulled all-nighters for a whole week straight. I ended up collapsing in the break room and almost didn't wake up. The first thing I did when I came to was grab my phone to check the project group chat. My manager asked, "Anna, is that PowerPoint finished?" I pulled out my slammed my resignation letter on his desk, had 2,300 left in my bank account. Enough to survive for a month. I slacked off for 29 days. On the evening of the 29th day, my landlord pounded on the door. "Anna, if you don't pay the rent tomorrow, pack your bags and get out." I stared at the ceiling, counting the cracks. My phone suddenly lit up. Unknown number. Mess. And I'm Mr. Green's assistant. Surname Chen. "We have a job for you. Monthly salary of 100,000. Includes room and board. Start immediately." "What job, Mrs. Green?" "Mr. Green is Simon Green of the Green Group." "Me, yes, Mr. Green says you are very suitable." "Suitable for what?" "Suitable to be Mrs. Green. The contract and prenuptial agreement are drafted and will be sent to your email shortly. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. at the Green residence. We'll need your signature." "What if I refuse?" "It seems you don't have the option to refuse, MS. And your landlord is an employee of a subsidiary under the Green Group." I stared at the ceiling, the last crack. Counted it clearly. 17, fine, just like that. I married Simon Green, a 48-year-old widower, father of 3, worth billions. The wedding was simple, got the marriage certificate, signed. The prenup was as thick as a brick. The core message was just one thing. Anna, as the legal wife of Mr. Simon Green, must not lay a finger on the core assets of the Green Group, must not interfere with any of the Green Group's business decisions, must not meddle in the lives of Mr. Simon Green and his 3 children. 100,000 a month, pocket money, plus an unlimited supplementary card, for maintaining the dignity of Mrs. Green. I signed in a flash. Assistant Jack was stunned. MS. And don't you want to read the other clauses? "No need." "Why?" "I only care if the bed is big enough." Simon Green's bed was indeed big enough, absurdly big. Lying on it felt like sleeping on a cloud. But Simon Green hardly ever came back to sleep. He was too busy making money. Busy flying all over the world, busy expanding the Green Group's commercial empire. My role was to hang on his arm when he occasionally needed a female companion for a banquet. Smile, nod, say hello, say thank you, say goodbye. The rest of the time, I lay in the sunroom with the glass dome on the top floor of the Green residence, reading, binge-watching shows, eating fruit, watching the clouds drift by, watching the stars come out. Monthly salary, 100,000, room and board included. Job description, slack off. This job, I could do it until I die, if it weren't for those 3 stepsons. Charles Green, the eldest, 22 years old, just graduated from university, head of red hair, at least 10 piercings in his ears. The way he looks at me is like looking at a piece of gum stuck to the Green family carpet. Evan Green, the second, 20 years old, titular vice president of a tech company under the Green Group, gold-rimmed glasses, dressed in a suit and tie. The way he looks at me is like looking at a minority shareholder about to be forced out. Kevin Green, the third son, 16 years old, a high school student at an international school, looks the most like Simon Green. His eyes are moist, like a harmless little deer. The first time we met, he timidly called me Auntie and handed me a cookie he baked himself, so sweet it was cloying. I almost choked to death. But deep in the eyes of all 3 of them, the same thing was hidden: wariness. Testing, evaluation. I know, in this mansion worth hundreds of millions, I am the outsider, the MS, and with a monthly salary of 100,000, who could be kicked out at any moment. "It's fine, you do your thing, I'll do mine, we'll stay out of each other's way." Until that night, Charles Green threw a small party. Small, meaning about 100 people showed up. The deafening music almost lifted the roof. Alcohol was splashed everywhere. I was wearing noise-canceling headphones, watching my Korean drama on the top floor, crying my eyes out. The door was slammed open. Charles Green rushed in, reeking of alcohol. "Hey, old woman." I paused my tablet, wiped my tears. "We're out of alcohol downstairs. Go to the wine cellar and bring up a few cases." He pointed at my nose. "Move," I said. "What? You're blocking my light." He was like an enraged bull. "Who do you think you are? How dare you talk to me like that?" I'm the one your dad paid to lie flat. I pointed to the door. Manual labor like moving alcohol isn't in my contract. Go find the butler. He suddenly snatched my tablet, smashed it on the floor. The screen cracked. Now, go, move, the alcohol. I looked at him, red hair, eyes wide with anger, young and impulsive, like a puffed-up fighting cock. I stood up, a head shorter than him. Charles Green. What? The tablet, latest model, top configuration, 12,000. You broke it, cash or transfer? He probably didn't expect me to bring this up, was stunned. What the hell? Pay up, I'll pay your mother, or, I'll call your dad right now. I took out my phone, tell him his son is throwing an illegal party, noise levels severely exceeding standards, and damaging others' property. By the way, ask if that Swiss boarding school he mentioned last time is still taking students. Charles Green's face turned pale, then red. You wouldn't dare. Wanna bet? I unlocked the screen. 100,000 a month doesn't include getting my stuff smashed and being yelled at. Calling your dad is just overtime, might even get a bonus. He stared at me fiercely, his eyes looked like he wanted to devour me whole. The music was still blasting downstairs. You're something else. He took out his phone, stabbed at the screen forcefully. Alipay received, 12,000 yuan, the mechanical female voice announced. Satisfied, he said through gritted teeth, it'll do. I picked up the cracked tablet, the alcohol, in the storage room downstairs, right cabinet, third shelf. There's the butler's spare key, wine cellar code, your dad's birthday backwards. I put my headphones back on. Remember to close the door on your way out. Charles Green stood there like a log. For a long moment, slam, he stormed out, slamming the door. Peace and quiet returned. Lying flat requires strategy too. The second son, Evan Green, is a smiling tiger. 100 times trickier than Charles Green. He's in charge of looking after my life. Antian, one day at dinner, he adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses. You don't look too well lately. Is it too boring? Would you like to come to the company and do something? No need. I focused on dealing with the bird's nest in my bowl. Lying flat is just fine. Dad hasn't been feeling well lately. He sighed. The doctor said he's been worrying too much. If only someone could help share his burden a bit. He looked at me meaningfully. I can't share it. I put down the spoon. The prenuptial agreement is very clear. No meddling. No interference. No giving orders. I'm a person who follows the rules. His eyes flashed behind his glasses. Antian, you're so humorous. How about this? There's a charity auction dinner next month. Dad doesn't have time to go. Will you attend on behalf of the Green family? All right, I agreed very readily. What do I need to do? Very simple. He smiled. Just bid on the most expensive lot. The Green family's reputation must not be lost. Oh, I nodded. How much is the most expensive one, roughly? Last year's finale was a ancient famille rose vase, 80 million, Auntie Anna, got it, on the night of the dinner, elegantly dressed guests, glasses clinking. I was wearing the haute couture gown prepared by the Green family, like a puppet on a string, smiling, nodding. The auction began. Lot after lot passed by. Evan Green sat beside me, composed and calm. Finally, the finale. The host was passionate. A Ming Dynasty blue and white porcelain vase with interlocking lotus and plum branches. Starting bid, 30 million. Bidding began. The numbers climbed steadily. 40 million, 50 million, 60 million. Evan Green turned his head, whispered, Auntie Anna, it's time for you to make a move. Bid 70 million now. Get it done in one step. I picked up the bidding paddle, raised it. The host's eyes lit up. Number 18, Mrs. Green, 70 million. All eyes focused. Evan Green's lips curled slightly. 70 million. First call. 70, 71 million. Someone raised their paddle. Evan Green's smile froze. 72 million. Another person. The price was driven up to 75 million. Evan Green's expression turned somewhat ugly. Auntie Anna, go straight to 80 million. I put down the paddle, picked up the champagne, took a sip. Auntie Anna, too expensive. I said, what? 80 million, for a vase. I frowned. How many years could that allow me to lie flat? The Green family's reputation. He lowered his voice, sounding a bit anxious. Reputation is empty, I said leisurely. Money is real. The prenuptial agreement states that the supplementary card is for maintaining Mrs. Green's dignity. Spending 80 million on a vase, I find very undignified, too wasteful, doesn't suit my frugal and simple persona. Evan Green's face turned green. On the stage, The host was excited. 78 million, third call, sold, congratulations to gentleman number 32, applause broke out. Evan Green stared at me intently. I raised my glass to him, smiled, saved 80 million, no need to thank me. On the way back, the atmosphere in the car was so tense it could freeze a person to death. Evan Green finally spoke. Auntie Anna, you truly made me see you in a new light today. You flatter me. Aren't you afraid Dad will be unhappy when he finds out? I am afraid. I leaned against the car window, so I did a little homework. What homework? That buyer number 32 was a shill hired by your dad. Your dad never wanted to spend 80 million on a broken vase, but he didn't want to offend the organizers either, so you brought me along to make me the sucker. When it's auctioned off, the money is from my card, the vase goes to the Green family, but the credit is his. The agreement states that for expenses on the supplementary card, I am responsible for explaining the purpose. 80 million for a vase. If your father asks, I can only tell the truth. I'll say you made me bid for it. I watched his face instantly turn pale. Who do you think your father will be angry with? Evan Green fell silent. The rest of the ride was quiet. We arrived home. Before getting out of the car, he suddenly spoke. Auntie Anna, do you really just want to lie flat? What else? I pushed the car door open. Fight with you all. Too exhausting. Doesn't fit my career plan. The third son, Kevin Green, is the most deeply hidden. He seems the most harmless but has the most destructive power. He takes the warm and affectionate approach. Auntie Anna, one weekend afternoon, he rushed into the sunroom with his math homework. I don't know how to solve this problem. I was reading a novel and couldn't even be bothered to lift my eyelids. Ask your brother. Big brother is out for a performance. Second brother is at the company. He leaned closer, his deer-like eyes glistening. Auntie, please help me, I'm begging you. I sighed and put down my book. Which one? This one, solid geometry. I glanced at it. Connect AC and BD, intersecting at point O. Prove that PO is perpendicular to plane ABCD. Draw the diagonals as auxiliary lines. Use the three perpendiculars theorem. He blinked. Auntie, you're amazing. What did Auntie used to do? Overtime. Ha. Worked myself to death. Oh, he seemed to half understand. Auntie, next Friday's parent-teacher conference. Can you go instead of my dad? No. Why? It's not in the contract. My dad is abroad and can't come back. Big brother and second brother are both busy too. What does that have to do with me? Please, Auntie. He tugged at my sleeve, shaking it. My classmates all say that my mom is gone. No one cares about me. He lowered his head, his voice trembling as if he were about to cry. The teacher always asks about my family too. I cursed inwardly. This little brat. He's too good at acting. Time and place. Next Friday at 2 p.m., the International Division Auditorium. He immediately looked up, his eyes sparkling. There were no tears in sight. Thank you, Auntie. On the day of the parent-teacher conference, I wore the most ordinary sportswear and a face mask, slipping into the last row of the auditorium just to be invisible. But then, Kevin Green, as the top student in his grade, took the stage to speak. The spotlight shone on him, a tall, spirited young man, full of ambition. When his speech ended, thunderous applause erupted. His gaze swept across the audience and precisely landed on me. He picked up the microphone. Today, he said, I want to specially thank someone. He paused. The entire room fell silent. A chill ran down my spine. I had a bad feeling. My mom. Although she's quietly sitting in the back today, not wanting to disturb me, I want to say, the spotlight, snap, shone directly on me, the eyes of the entire audience, whoosh, focused on me. Mom, thank you. Thank you for being willing to come. Thank you for being willing to step into my life. His voice choked up. His eyes reddened, full of genuine emotion. The entire audience was moved. Thunderous applause erupted once more, mixed with murmurs. That's Kevin Green's mom, so young. She doesn't look like it. Stepmom, right? I heard Mr. Green got remarried. It's already a miracle that the stepmom showed up, and she even sits in the last row. Kevin Green is so well behaved. I sat under the harsh lights, my face beneath the mask, stiff. Only one thought in my mind, you little brat. Acting all innocent in front of me. Parent-teacher meeting ended. A crowd of wealthy ladies swarmed around me. Mrs. Green, how do you maintain your skin? Mrs. Green, you've raised Kevin so well. Mrs. Green, Kevin Green squeezed through, warmly linking his arm with mine. Mom, shall we go home? In the car, I tore off my mask. Kevin Green, you overacted. He blinked innocently. Auntie, did I say something wrong? Who's your mom? You are, since my dad married you. You're legally my mother. He leaned in, lowered his voice, with a sly, youthful grin. Auntie, look, after today, the whole school knows you're my mom. Next parent-teacher meeting, sports day, graduation ceremony, you can't escape. I closed my eyes, leaned against the headrest, mentally exhausted. This 100,000 yuan is getting harder and harder to earn. 3 little masters, taking turns to cause trouble. The eldest wreaks havoc, the second sets traps. The third plays emotional blackmail. I stay vigilant, holding firm to my bottom line of staying out of drama, until that explosive news shot to the top of the trending list. #shocking, Green Group's heir Charles Green's secret identity as an underground band lead singer exposed. ## Charles Green rock rampage smashing cars. ## rich family rebel image collapses. #accompanying images show Charles Green with blue hair, wearing a studded leather jacket, screaming in a dimly lit bar. A few more photos of him losing control, vaguely smashing a sports car with his guitar. The news spread like wildfire. Green Group stock plummeted instantly. Simon Green's call came directly to me. Airport announcements in the background, his tone icy. Anna, I don't care what method you use. Immediately, right now, get Charles Green back here. Lock him up at home. Before I return to handle this, he is not to step 1 foot outside. And those news stories, suppress them. Anna, understood. I hung up the phone, head pounding. A monthly salary of 100,000 yuan. Now I have to do crisis PR work, and moonlight as a bodyguard. Such a raw deal. Charles Green's room looked like a hurricane had swept through. He threw himself onto the bed, covered his head with a pillow. Get out, his voice muffled. Your dad wants you to get your ass back home. I said get out. Fine. I turned around. I'll call him back right now. Tell him you're not cooperating. Have him contact that school in Switzerland directly. Send a private jet to pick you up. He flung the pillow off abruptly, eyes bloodshot. Besides tattling, what else can you do? Also good at staying out of drama. I pulled over a chair, sat down. Now, talk. What happened? He turned his head away, said nothing, not talking. I picked up my phone. I guess the weather in Switzerland is nice right now. The band is mine. His voice hoarse. No kidding. That car, who owns it? David, who? Deputy Mayor Wilson's son. He called my band trash, said without the Green family, I'm nothing. Just smashed his car, with a guitar. A sports car worth millions. Where's your brain? Got crushed by your studded leather jacket. He glared at me. None of your business. Who wants to bother? I stood up. Pack your things. What for? We're running away. When your dad gets back, even if he doesn't beat you to death, he'll skin you alive. Run where? I have a distant cousin in the countryside, raises pigs, needs someone to shovel manure, food and lodging included, perfect for you. The way Charles Green looked at me was like I was an alien. Anna, are you insane? Yeah, the poverty kind, incurable. I pulled the door open. Coming or not, I'll give you 3 seconds. 3, 2, the hell I'm going, he yelled. I'm the one who smashed the car. I'm the one who caused the trouble. I'll own up to it. I don't need your fake sympathy. Oh, I nodded, quite responsible. Fine, then handle it yourself. David is going to call the police. Sue you for intentional destruction of property. The amount is particularly huge. The circumstances are particularly severe. Starts at 3 years in prison. Green Corp stock price dropped 7% today. Market value evaporated. Stop it. He covered his ears. Now, you have 2 choices. I pried his hands away, forced him to listen. A. Come with me to the Wang family to apologize, pay compensation, admit defeat, and beg for a settlement. No way. B. I'll book a flight right now, and you get the hell out to Switzerland. He bit his lip hard, so hard it bled. Choose A, or B. A. His voice was as faint as a mosquito's hum. Louder. A. He shouted. All right. I took out my phone. Assistant Jack. Contact the Wang family. Charles Green and I will visit to apologize in 1 hour. Prepare a blank check. The limit. I glanced at Charles Green. Up to 1 billion. Enough to cover his crappy car and medical expenses. Charles Green jerked his head up. 1 billion. Are you crazy, or what? I put away my phone. Can you afford it, or do you want to go to jail? Now, I pointed at his tattered leather jacket and blue hair. Go get this trashy look of yours cleaned up, the Wang residence. The atmosphere was heavy. David's arm was in a sling, a bandage on his face, his eyes full of venom. Deputy Mayor Wilson and his wife, their faces were livid. Charles Green hung his head, stood beside me, his back ramrod straight, but his fingers were trembling. Mrs. Green, Deputy Mayor Wilson spoke. This matter is far too serious. Our David, Uncle Wang, I interrupted him, my voice calm. Today, we are here to apologize, and to resolve the issue. The child acted impulsively. Made a mistake. We will certainly compensate for what's due. We will not shirk any responsibility. This is a blank check. I pushed it forward. You fill in the amount, car damage, medical expenses, emotional distress. The Green family accepts it. Mrs. Wilson sneered. Mrs. Green, money is something our Wang family doesn't lack. What we lack is an explanation. Explanation. I raised my eyes. What kind of explanation do you want? Charles Green must apologize publicly. In the newspapers, on television, fine, he must guarantee it, that he'll stay far away from our David from now on, no problem. And also, Mom, David suddenly spoke up, pointing at Charles Green, I want him to kneel and apologize to me. The living room fell silent. Charles Green abruptly looked up, his eyes bloodshot. In your dreams, look at him, Mrs. Wilson shrieked. Is this attitude an apology? I held back. Charles Green, who was about to erupt, looked at David. David, you want him to kneel? Yes. Are you sure? Yes. All right. I took out my phone, opened a recording, played it aloud. In the noisy background, David's arrogant voice was exceptionally clear. Charles Green, ha. A good-for-nothing relying on his dad, your band, total crap, garbage, and that stepmom of yours, heard she used to be just an overworked drone, climbed into bed to become Mrs. Green, how fucking inspiring. What kind of trash family is this? The recording cut off abruptly. The living room was dead silent. The faces of Deputy Mayor Wilson and his wife instantly turned pale. David stood with his mouth agape, like a chicken being strangled. Charles Green stared at me in shock. I put away my phone, smiled. David, intentional destruction of property, with a large amount involved, starts at 3 years in prison, insulting and defaming others, if the circumstances are serious, up to 3 years. Now, are you still sure you want Charles Green to kneel to you? On the way back, Charles Green remained silent the whole time. As we approached the Green residence, he suddenly spoke. When did you record that? The bar has surveillance. I had Assistant Jack get the audio. Why did you help me? Who's helping you? I glanced at him. I'm helping myself. If you end up in jail, the Green family's stock will drop even more. It affects my ability to lie low. He turned to look out the window. After a long while, muttered, thanks. For what? For not making me actually kneel. Oh, and also, the recording. How did you know he would say those things? I didn't know. I looked ahead, but I knew. Someone like him, after having his car smashed, losing face, given the chance to step on you, he would definitely say the filthiest things. Charles Green fell silent. The car stopped at the entrance of the Green residence. He got out, walked a few steps, stopped, didn't turn around. Hey, and Anna, in the future, cause less trouble. I cut him off. If you cause trouble, don't expect me to clean up after you every time. His shoulders tensed. Got it. He hurried through the gate. His retreating figure looked somewhat flustered. Just after dealing with Charles Green's mess, only 2 days of peace passed. Then Evan Green showed up. This time, he directly tossed a stack of documents at me. Aunt Anna, take a look at this. I opened it. It was the financial report of a subsidiary under the Green Corporation. Severe losses. What does this mean? This company has always been managed by my uncle. He adjusted his glasses. Dad has been very dissatisfied with him lately, wants to replace him. I think you're suitable. I've looked into it. You used to work in financial analysis at a major corporation. It matches your expertise. I'll talk to Dad about it. You just need to hold the title. No need to actually manage anything. Annual salary. He gestured a number. 3 million. I closed the file. Not going. Why? Tiring. Isn't lying flat nice. Auntie Anna. He leaned forward. Do you really plan to be a useless girl your whole life? 100,000. What can that do? Are you content with that? I am content. I leaned back. High pay, little work, close to home, the ideal job. Besides, I tapped the file. This company, superficially losing money, but in reality, your uncle is shifting funds between his left and right hands, draining the company. The books look beautiful, but the holes are all underneath. Your dad wants to replace someone, he's looking for a scapegoat, to plug the holes, to take the blame. I looked at his instantly frozen face. And you want me to go, Evan Green, you're quite skilled at this, using others to kill, tactic. His expression shifted. Finally, he forced a smile. Auntie Anna, you're overthinking it, am I? I stood up. Tell your uncle, he should figure out how to fill the holes himself. Don't even think about dragging me down with him, and you. If you want to fight for power, don't use me as your pawn. I'm lazy, but I'm not stupid. Evan Green stared at me, the gaze behind his glasses, for the first time, lost its smile, leaving only coldness. Auntie Anna, with an attitude like that, you'll easily have no friends. I don't care, I shrugged. Having a bed is enough for me. Kevin Green quieted down for a while. I thought he had learned his lesson, but he was brewing something big. Ended up landing himself in the hospital, acute gastroenteritis, vomiting and diarrhea, high fever that wouldn't break. Simon Green was still abroad. Charles Green was unreachable, probably off fooling around somewhere again. Evan Green's phone was turned off. The hospital called home. The butler was at a loss, had to come to me, late at night. I rushed to the hospital VIP ward. Kevin Green was curled up on the hospital bed, his small face flushed red from fever, lips chapped, pitiful. When he saw me, tears fell pattering down. Auntie, I feel awful, the nurse beside him said. Mrs. Green, the child was brought in a bit late. He's dehydrated, needs an for family. Please keep an eye on him. Press the call button if anything happens. The nurse left. The ward fell quiet. I pulled up a chair and sat down. What happened? Tell me. Ate something unclean. What? A cake I made myself. Wanted to celebrate your birthday. He sobbed intermittently. I saw on your ID card. It's today. My ID card birthday was randomly filled in to start school a year earlier, but I messed up. The cream was spoiled. I didn't notice. Auntie, I'm sorry, causing you trouble again. He was burning up and delirious, still apologizing. I looked at him, a 16-year-old boy, shrunk into a ball, fragile like glass. The bit of impatience in my heart mysteriously dissipated. All right. I took a cotton swab, dipped it in water, moistened his chapped lips. Sleep, I'm here. He grabbed one of my fingers, burning hot. Auntie, don't go, I'm scared. Before, when Mom was sick, Dad was never around. My brothers were busy too. It was just me. He closed his eyes. Tears streamed down from the corners of my eyes, so dark. I pulled my finger out. He stirred restlessly. I sighed, tucking his cold hand back under the covers, not leaving. Sleep. I leaned back in the chair, watching the four drip, drop by drop, outside the window. The night was deep. This kid really knows how to cause a scene, but this time, it felt different. After Kevin Green recovered from his illness, the atmosphere in the Green household underwent a subtle change. When Charles Green saw me, he no longer glared with hostility. Occasionally, he'd even awkwardly ask, "Hey, have you eaten?" Evan Green remained polite and distant, but in his eyes, there was less calculation and a bit more curiosity. Kevin Green became even more clingy. Auntie, this problem. Auntie, try the cookies I just baked. They're really not sweet this time. Auntie, I still lazed around, in the sunroom, reading, binge-watching shows, eating fruit, only. When Charles Green had band practice, he'd turn the volume down a little. When Evan Green thought about setting a trap for me, he'd hesitate for a moment. When Kevin Green wanted to act spoiled, he'd check my expression first. Life seemed like it could barely continue peacefully, until that woman appeared. On an ordinary afternoon, the doorbell rang. The butler went to answer it. I lay in the rocking chair, drowsy. Excuse me, is Mr. Simon Green in? A gentle woman's voice sounded somewhat familiar. I opened my eyes, saw the woman at the door, dressed in a beige suit, elegant and proper, with a pretty face, well maintained. She looked under 40. In her hand, she held a little boy, about 7 or 8 years old. His features resembled Simon Green's, about 70%. My heart sank. The butler was clearly stunned too. May I ask who you are? My surname is Lincoln. The woman smiled. Lucy Lincoln, please tell Simon Green, his son misses him. The sunroom instantly fell silent. Lucy, Simon Green's ex-wife. the biological mother of Charles Green, Evan Green, and Kevin Green. In the news, 15 years ago, she died in a plane crash. Now, she was holding a little boy's hand, standing alive at the door, saying, Simon Green's son missed him. The information was overwhelming. My brain short-circuited a little. MS, Lincoln. The butler's voice trembled. Please come in. Lucy led the child inside. Her gaze swept across the luxurious hall, finally, landed on me. Her eyes were very calm, no surprise, no hostility, even carrying a hint of pity. You must be missin'. She smiled. Hello, I'm Lucy, Simon Green's ex-wife, the mother of these 3 children. I stood up. Hello, Anna, I know. She nodded. Mr. Green mentioned you to me. I'm sorry for the sudden intrusion. She looked down at the little boy beside her. Eric, say hello to Auntie, the little boy timidly said. Hello, Auntie, MS, Lincoln. The butler was sweating on his forehead. Sir, he's abroad. I know. Lucy still smiled. It's fine, I'll wait for him. She held her son's hand. She sat down on the living room sofa, her posture composed, as if she were the true lady of the house. Missin', she looked at me. Could you please call the children? Charles Green, Evan Green, Kevin Green. Tell them, she said, Mom is back. The 3 Green brothers rushed home at top speed. Charles Green was the first to arrive. He burst into the living room, saw Lucy, and froze as if struck by lightning. His face turned pale, his lips trembling. Mom, Charles. Lucy stood up, her eyes slightly red. You've grown so tall. She reached out to touch his face. Charles Green abruptly stepped back, as if avoiding the plague, his eyes filled with terror. No, it can't be, you're not. I survived the plane crash by chance. Lucy's voice choked with emotion. I was severely injured, lost my memory, and ended up abroad. It was only recently that I remembered, and found a way to return. Charles Green stared at her intently, then glanced at the little boy beside her, then him. Eric, Lucy hugged the boy, is mine and Simon Green's child, your brother. Charles Green staggered back, leaning against the wall to keep from collapsing. Evan Green was the second to arrive. He was calmer than Charles, but his gaze behind the gold-rimmed glasses was sharp as a knife. MS, Lincoln. He didn't even call her Mom. Survived a plane crash. Amnesia, quite dramatic. Where's the proof? Lucy seemed prepared. She took out several documents from her bag, DNA test results, identification papers, and even photocopies of some confidential files of survivors from the plane crash. I know this is hard to accept, she said, looking at Evan with a complicated expression. Evan, please call me Evan Green. Evan coldly interrupted, flipping through the documents, his expression growing darker. Finally, Kevin Green arrived. He almost ran into the room, but stopped when he saw Lucy. His deer-like eyes widened, filled with confusion. Mom, Kevin. Lucy's tears fell as she opened her arms. My child. Kevin didn't move. He looked at Lucy, then at me, his eyes panicked, like a lost little animal. Aunt Anna. He instinctively took a step toward me. Lucy's movement froze, her gaze shifting to me with a hint of barely concealed coldness. Missin', she said, thank you for taking care of my children all these years. Now, I'm back. The living room fell into a deathly silence. Charles Green looked devastated. Evan Green's eyes were icy, and Kevin Green was at a loss. Lucy, holding her son's hand, stood elegantly, yet with an air of declaration. I had become an outsider, an unnecessary presence. Aunt Anna. Kevin called out softly. Is she, really? DNA doesn't lie. Evan closed the file, his voice devoid of warmth. MS, Lincoln, your story is quite remarkable, but father isn't here. Green family matters are not for outsiders to interfere with. Outsider, Lucy laughed, through tears. Evan, I am your mother. 15 years ago, you gave up that title. Evan Green did not yield. Legally, you and father have no relation. Now you show up with a child of unknown origins. Evan Green. Lucy's voice rose sharply. Eric is your biological brother. Proof. Evan Green pointed at the little boy. The DNA report you provided only proves he is your son. What about the paternity link to father? Lucy's face changed slightly. None. Evan Green took a step closer. Or is it? You don't dare take one. Afraid the result won't be what you want. Lucy's chest heaved. She looked at Charles Green. Charles, are you just going to stand there and let him treat me like this? Charles Green leaned against the wall, his eyes vacant. Mom, back then, why didn't you come back? Why, only come back now, and bringing, he pointed at the little boy, him. Lucy was speechless. Kevin Green suddenly spoke. His voice was soft, choked with tears. You came back, to drive away Auntie Anna. All eyes, instantly focused on me. I stood at the doorway to the sunroom, like an audience member who had wandered onto the stage. Kevin, Lucy's voice was stern. She is just an outsider. I am your mother, but you left. Kevin Green suddenly shouted. You were gone for 15 years. When I was sick, where were you? At parent-teacher conferences. When I was laughed at for having no mom, where were you? Now you're back, and you want to drive Auntie Anna away. Why should you? He ran to my side, grabbed my hand, tightly. Auntie Anna isn't leaving. Lucy's face, completely darkened. Miss Anne, she looked at me, her gaze like an ice pick. I think, we need to talk. The Green family study. The heavy door closed, shutting out the storm outside. Lucy sat behind Simon Green's desk, poised and elegant, but with a condescending scrutiny. Miss Anne, name your price. I know, Simon, Mr. Green has given you quite a lot. But that isn't enough to sever your connection to the Green family, especially my children's affection. She leaned forward. Kevin is young, doesn't understand. You've bewitched him. Charles and Evan are just confused for the moment. Blood ties cannot be cut, and she smiled, with the composure of one holding all the cards. I am their real mother, the only lady of the greenhouse. Now, I am back. You, this stand-in, should exit the stage. I looked at her. Mrs. Lincoln, 15 years ago, you didn't die. Why only come back now? Her smile didn't falter. I told you, severe injury, amnesia. Oh, so now, your memory has returned, of course. How convenient the timing. I nodded. Just after the news of Simon Green's heart attack and hospitalization gets out, you show up with a son. They've come knocking. Lucy's smile froze for an instant. What do you mean? Nothing much. I walked to the window, looking out at the garden. Simon Green's trip abroad this time isn't for business. He's going for a heart bypass surgery. The success rate is less than 50%. I turned around, watching her expression change abruptly. He kept it from everyone, including his 3 sons, only Jack, his assistant, and I know. So, you chose to come back at this time because you calculated that he might not make it back, or that even if he does, he'll be a useless man. Lucy stood up abruptly. You're talking nonsense. Whether I'm talking nonsense or not, you know the truth. I moved closer to her. Lucy, you didn't lose your memory in a plane crash back then. You ran off with your lover, didn't you? Her pupils contracted sharply. Simon Green has always known. He suppressed the news, publicly declared you dead to preserve the Green family's reputation and protect your 3 sons. Now, has your lover gone bankrupt, or is he drowning in debt, or did he run off with the money? With nowhere else to turn, you remembered the Green family's money tree, and you even brought along a child whose father is anyone's guess. Slap. A sharp slap landed hard on my face, stinging with a burning pain. Lucy's chest heaved violently, her eyes filled with venom. Who do you think you are? How dare you talk about me like that? A cheap woman bought with money, the Green family's watchdog. I licked the taste of blood at the corner of my mouth and smiled, getting defensive. Seems I hit a nerve. Take your son and get out of the Green family. I pointed at the door. Otherwise, I won't mind telling Charles Green and the others about all this. Let's see if they would acknowledge a mother who abandoned her husband and children, ran off with money and a lover, and now, with nowhere else to go, comes back to use them to seize the family fortune. Lucy's face turned deathly pale, her fingers trembling. How dare you? Do you think I wouldn't? I took out my phone, opened an audio file, and pressed play. Lucy's voice and a man's voice came through. That sickly Simon Green, he won't last much longer. As long as we get a hold of those 3 brats, the Green family will be ours. What about that woman, a decorative piece bought with money? There are plenty of ways to get rid of her. The recording was obtained by Jack, the assistant, through a private investigator I hired, just for a day like this. Lucy seemed to have all the energy drained from her as she collapsed into the chair. Now, get out. I put away my phone. Before I changed my mind, she glared at me with pure hatred but eventually staggered to her feet, grabbed her terrified son, and fled in panic, like 2 stray dogs. The study door opened. In the living room, all 3 Green brothers were present, the atmosphere heavy. They had clearly overheard part of the argument. Charles Green's expression was complicated. Evan Green seemed lost in thought. Kevin Green ran over. Auntie Anna, your face. His small hand gently touched my swollen cheek. Does it hurt? It's fine. I ruffled his hair. Where is she? Evan Green asked. She's gone, I said. I won't be coming back anymore. Charles Green suddenly spoke up. She isn't my mother. Yes, I looked at him. But she doesn't deserve it. Charles Green fell silent. Evan Green adjusted his glasses. The recording. Deleted, I said. Let's end it here. Kevin Green held my hand. Auntie Anna, you won't leave, will you? Charles Green and Evan Green also looked over. In their eyes, there was a nervousness I had never seen before. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, spilling onto the floor. Warm and cozy, I stretched lazily. Leave? Go where? My bed is here. My 100,000 yuan monthly salary is here. I yawned. No matter how vast the world is, lying flat is the greatest. Even if the King of Heaven himself shows up, he still won't make me budge. Charles Green snorted disdainfully. Money grubber. Evan Green shook his head, but the corners of his mouth lifted slightly. Kevin Green cheered. Then I'll go bake cookies. This time, I definitely won't mess up. I looked at them. Charles Green awkwardly turned his face away, the tips of his ears slightly red. Evan Green took out his phone. Assistant Jack. Contact the best PR team. We can't keep Dad's surgery a secret any longer. Kevin Green bounced cheerfully toward the kitchen. The sunlight was just right. I nestled back into my rocking chair and picked up the half-read novel. Lying flat. Feels good. It's just, Kevin Green. I shouted toward the kitchen. If you add that much sugar again, I'll throw you and your cookies out together. The clear, bright laughter of a young man came from the kitchen. Got it, Auntie Anna. I closed my eyes, unable to suppress the smile tugging at my lips. This life of lying flat seems not quite as peaceful as before. Oh well, I'll make do. After all, this bed is really big enough. Continued, the floor of the sunroom was so warm it felt a bit hot underfoot. Kevin Green's, definitely not sweet, cookies, which he had sworn by, were eventually brought out with a suspicious caramel aroma. He stared at me eagerly. His deer-like eyes filled with anticipation that screamed, praise me, praise me. I picked up a piece and, under Charles Green's amused gaze and the glint of shrewdness behind Evan Green's glasses, stuffed it into my mouth. How is it? Kevin Green swallowed nervously. I chewed expressionlessly. It was cloyingly sweet and a bit burnt. There's improvement, really. He instantly perked up. At least it didn't send me to the hospital on the spot. Charles Green burst out laughing, earning a fierce glare from Kevin Green. Evan Green adjusted his glasses, the corners of his mouth lifting slightly, but he said nothing. The tension in the air, brought on by Lucy's sudden appearance and hasty retreat, seemed to dissipate a little, washed away by the overly sweet cookies. But this piece was as fragile as the glass roof of the sunroom. Simon Green was still on the operating table, his fate uncertain, although Lucy had been temporarily scared off. Her resentful eyes and that timid boy were like two thorns, buried in unseen places. My phone vibrated, a message from Assistant Jack, concise and to the point. Surgery over, in ICU, condition temporarily stable but not out of danger. Expected to remain unconscious for 24 to 48 hours for observation. Information has been sealed. I turned my phone face down and placed it on the armrest of the rocking chair. How is Dad? Evan Green was the first to speak, his voice steady, but his gaze behind his glasses was locked intently on me. Charles Green also stopped smiling and stared at me. Kevin Green nearly dropped the plate of cookies in his hand. The surgery is over. I picked up the water glass, took a big gulp, and washed away the cloying sweetness in my mouth. He's in the ICU and hasn't woken up. And then, Charles Green pressed, his tone impatient. And then, I glanced at him. Then we wait. The doctors aren't miracle workers. What did the doctors say? Evan Green pressed for details. They said, his condition is temporarily stable, but he's not out of the danger zone yet. I repeated Jack's assistant's words. In plain terms, he's not completely dead yet, but he could stop breathing at any moment. Kevin Green gasped, his eyes instantly reddening. Charles Green slammed his fist onto the nearby coffee table, making the grapes in the fruit bowl jump. Evan Green fell silent for a few seconds, his fingers unconsciously tapping on his knee, a habit of his when he was thinking intensely. Has the news been contained? Jack's assistant is handling it. It won't stay contained for long. Evan Green's tone was so calm it was almost cold. The fact that Lucy showed up precisely at this critical moment means someone leaked the information. News of Dad's hospitalization has probably already stirred up trouble outside. As soon as he finished speaking, Charles Green's phone rang. It was his friend from the band, sounding panicked. "Charles, it's bad. Someone online leaked that Chairman Green is critically ill. The stock price is plummeting." Charles Green hung up with a grim expression. Evan Green's phone lit up almost simultaneously. He glanced at it and sneered, "They're fast. A few of the old-timers can't sit still anymore." The storm had indeed arrived, sooner and fiercer than expected. The news of the Green Group's leader being critically ill was like a depth charge, instantly exploding across the headlines of both the financial and social sections. All sorts of speculative guesses, doubts about the heir's capabilities, and even the old story of Lucy's resurrection from the dead were dug up and rehashed. The stock price plummeted off a cliff. Partners called one after another to test the waters, and the media, like sharks smelling blood, swarmed around the Green residence and the company building. The Green family's priceless gold mountain was teetering on the brink, and the three young heirs, one hot-tempered and impulsive, one deep-thinking but still inexperienced, and one still an ignorant teenager. The sunroom became a temporary war room and the only safe haven. Charles Green paced back and forth like a caged animal, his red hair bristling as he roared into the phone. "What the hell is the PR department doing? Suppress it for me. If anyone dares to write nonsense again, I'll sue them until they're bankrupt." The effect was minimal. The more agitated he became, the more the outside world felt the Green family had no worthy successor. Evan Green locked himself in the study. Constantly on calls and video conferences, he tried to stabilize a few key shareholders and partners, his voice steady and his reasoning clear, but his furrowed brow and increasingly heavy eye bags revealed the pressure he was under. He needed actual leverage, not just eloquence. Simon Green's collapse had been too sudden, and many core resources and networks had not been fully handed over to him. Kevin Green was ordered to stay at home. He hugged his tablet, his face pale as he looked at the screen full of negative news and the plummeting stock price curve. Several times, he tried to approach Evan Green, only to be waved away impatiently. "Don't cause trouble." I remained lying in my rocking chair, reading a novel, except the page hadn't turned for a long time. My ears were forced to endure a constant stream of bad news and the brothers' suppressed arguments. "Evan Green, is making phone calls all you can do? Think of something. Think of something. Go out and yell at the media right now, or hack all those rumor-spreading websites." Charles Green, use your brain. I don't have all your scheming tricks. I just know the Green family can't collapse like this. It won't collapse. But if you charge out now, you're just handing them a target. It was like a chicken talking to a duck. I silently turned up the volume on my noise-canceling headphones. $10,000. And now it has to cover noise blocking and mental pollution. What a loss. The arguing grew louder, mixed with Kevin Green's tearful attempts to mediate. "Big brother, second brother, stop fighting, get lost. What does a kid know?" "Charles Green, why are you yelling at Kevin?" Thud. It sounded like someone had thrown something. I sighed and took off my headphones. This 10,000 was getting harder to earn. I stood up and walked to the study door. It was slightly ajar. Charles Green was red-faced, chest heaving violently, a shattered ashtray at his feet. Evan Green's face was ashen, his eyes behind his gold-rimmed glasses like frozen ice. Kevin Green was huddled in the corner, at a loss. Finished arguing, I pushed the door open and entered. My voice wasn't loud, but it made the two tense men instantly look over. "Anna, this is none of your business." Charles Green was still furious. "It really isn't." I walked over to Kevin Green, pulled him up, and brushed the dust off his clothes. "But you're disturbing my lying flat." And I pointed at the mess on the floor. This, a blue and white porcelain ashtray, was appraised by the auction house at about $800,000. "Should I deduct it from your next month's allowance?" Charles Green choked, his face turning even redder. Evan Green took a deep breath and rubbed his temples. "Auntie Anna, now is not the time for jokes." I finished for him. "I know." "So, are you planning to keep arguing until Simon Green breathes his last, and then let those outsiders tear the Green family apart and devour it?" My words were like ice water, poured over both their heads. Charles Green deflated like a balloon and slumped onto the sofa. Evan Green looked at me sharply. "Do you have any brilliant suggestions?" "No brilliant suggestions," I shrugged, "but I have one humble opinion. If you want to survive, first shut up, then divide the work." Both of them stared at me. "Evan Green," I pointed at him, "you're the smartest. Keep stabilizing those who can be stabilized, especially those old foxes who are wavering. They're watching now because they're afraid of choosing the wrong side. Make them see that the Green family still has someone who can take charge. Make them see hope. Your father's right-hand man, Assistant Jack, is your biggest asset right now. Use him well. Evan Green's eyes flickered. Thoughtful, Charles Green. I turned to the redhead. Rein in that rocker temper of yours. What's your advantage? You're young, you have a reckless streak, and you have a bunch of dubious friends. Don't underestimate these friends. They come from all walks of life and have the best information. Investigate. Who was the first to leak the news? Who's fanning the flames behind the scenes? Who connected Lucy when she suddenly appeared? Dig. The deeper, the better. Use money. Use your status as the Green young master to intimidate, whatever, but remember, don't get yourself caught, and don't give anyone more leverage. Charles Green was stunned, as if it was the first time someone had affirmed that his unproductive network of connections could actually be useful. What about me, Auntie Anna? Kevin Green asked eagerly, his little face clearly expressing, I want to help too. I glanced at him. You? He nodded vigorously. Go to the kitchen, huh? Tell Monica to brew some calming tea. I pointed at Evan Green and Charles Green. Make them drink it, and bake some cookies. No sugar. Kevin's face fell for a moment, but he immediately nodded. Okay, I'll go right now. The study fell silent. Charles Green and Evan Green exchanged a glance. For the first time, they saw a hint of possibility for cooperation. Or perhaps it was the tacit understanding of grasping at straws when all else fails. Still arguing? I asked. Evan Green shook his head, picked up his phone, walked to the window, and started dialing, his tone regaining its steadiness. Charles Green wiped his face, pulled out his phone, and began scrolling through his contacts, his eyes filled with a fierce focus. I turned and headed back to my sunroom. Staying idle is a skill. Sometimes, you have to steady the boat rocking next to you so it doesn't capsize and crush your own bed. Over the next 2 days, the Green residence operated like a high-speed, oppressive machine. Evan Green barely slept. Bombarded with calls, video conferences, and documents, he displayed a composure and sophistication beyond his years, seemingly stabilizing the attitudes of several key shareholders. Assistant Jack came and went, becoming Evan Green's most reliable support. Charles Green left early and returned late, carrying the scent of cigarettes and information from the outside. His so-called dubious friends unexpectedly proved useful in such times. He discovered that the first leak came from an obscure financial account, with its backer traced to a longtime competitor of the Green family who had been suppressed by Simon Green. As for Lucy, the clues were vague, as if a more cautious force was erasing traces behind the scenes. Kevin Green became the head of logistics, dutifully serving calming tea, though its taste was questionable, and not too sweet cookies, still a bit sweet, doing his best not to cause trouble. Me. I was in charge of staying idle and, when they were about to hit a wall, handing them a bland hammer. For instance, when Evan Green faced a stubborn old shareholder, I happened to recall, oh, I heard his precious grandson seems to particularly like the limited edition symbol signed by the drummer of Charles Green's band. A flicker of understanding passed through Evan Green's eyes. Or when Charles Green hit a dead end in his investigation and started tearing at his hair in frustration. I casually remarked, wasn't the operator of that financial account once banned from XX Forum for hacking? Isn't the forum administrator the cousin of your hacker bassist's friend? Charles Green paused for a moment, then immediately grabbed his phone. The way they looked at me gradually shifted from initial complexity to something else, something like astonishment, or perhaps a hint of reliance. Early on the third morning, before dawn had fully broken, Assistant Jack rushed into the Green residence, his face barely containing his excitement. He's awake. Chairman Green is awake. The heavy atmosphere seemed to tear open. The three brothers snapped out of their respective states and rushed toward the door in unison. How is he? Evan Green asked rapidly. Consciousness has returned. The doctor said he's past the most critical stage, but he's still very weak and needs absolute rest. No visits for now. And he must not be subjected to any stimulation, Assistant Jack reported breathlessly. Overwhelming joy and relief washed over them. Charles Green punched the wall hard, his eyes reddening. Evan Green's tense shoulders finally slumped as he leaned against the doorframe and let out a long sigh. Kevin Green burst into tears, then quickly wiped them away. I also breathed a sigh of relief. The golden goose was temporarily safe. And so was my bed, however. Assistant Jack's next words poured cold water on our newfound joy, but after Chairman Green woke up, He only asked one thing. He paused, his gaze sweeping over us before finally settling on me with a hint of imperceptible complexity. He asked, "Where's Anna? Was she scared away?" The atmosphere in the study froze again. The gazes of Charles Green, Evan Green, and Kevin Green simultaneously focused on me. Their eyes held inquiry, surprise, confusion, and a hint of indescribable tension. The first thing Simon Green asked about after waking up wasn't the company, the stock price, or even his 3 biological sons, but whether this MS and he hired to lie low had been scared off. I stood where I was, feeling the heat of their 3 gazes. The glass roof of the sunroom reflected the faint morning light. I touched the phone in my pocket. That 100,000 yuan monthly salary seemed like I'd have to work some overtime again. Scared away, I met their gazes and spoke slowly, my tone carrying a hint of sleepiness and a touch of justified absurdity. "What nonsense, my bed is still here. Who's running?" Kevin Green was the first to burst out laughing through his tears. Charles Green rolled his eyes, but the corner of his mouth seemed to twitch upward. Evan Green adjusted his glasses. His gaze behind the lenses was profound, lingering on my face for a few seconds before finally turning away. He said to Assistant Jack, "Tell Father that Auntie Anna is fine, and the family is temporarily all right too." He pronounced the word temporarily very softly, but clearly. The crisis was far from over. Simon Green had only temporarily escaped danger. He was still extremely weak and completely unable to take charge. The outside world's predatory gaze hadn't diminished because he woke up. On the contrary, it might become more brazen due to his illness. The shadow behind Lucy hadn't been dispelled. The internal power structure of the Green family had also subtly shifted because of Simon Green's collapse. Assistant Jack left to carry out his orders. Evan Green looked at me and Charles Green, his eyes regaining their usual calm and calculation, but seemingly with less wariness than before. Father waking up is good news, but it also makes him a new target. People outside will try every means to test his true condition. The news must be completely sealed, especially from the media and those restless shareholders. Charles Green, that competitor you investigated, leave it to me. Charles Green surprisingly didn't argue, his eyes fierce. I'd been wanting to settle the score with him. Auntie Anna. Evan Green turned to me, his tone polite but carrying an undeniable weight. "Before Father can receive visitors, I'm afraid we'll need you to make more public appearances." I raised an eyebrow. You are Mrs. Green, Father's legal wife. Your current state is a barometer of the Green family's situation in the eyes of the outside world," he explained. "The calmer and more composed you appear, even to the point of lying flat, the more people will speculate that Father is fine and everything is under control. This is more effective than us holding 100 press conferences." I understood. They wanted me to act as a smokescreen, to play the part of a serene, untroubled vase, confusing the enemy. The contract didn't mention anything about acting. I reminded him, "Consider it a performance bonus." Evan Green replied without missing a beat, "Paid per appearance. How about 100,000 per time, 200,000. I countered, driving a hard bargain. Evan Green's lips twitched. "Deal." Earning money while lying flat, it was only natural, especially when acting like I was lying flat was practically playing myself. And so, while rumors about Simon Green's uncertain fate ran rampant and the Green family's stock prices continued to fluctuate, Mrs. Anna Green's leisurely life was accidentally exposed to the public. First, a bystander who specialized in photographing celebrities near the Green residence captured Mrs. Anna in comfortable loungewear, leisurely trimming roses in her garden. She looked focused and relaxed, bathed in sunlight, a picture of serene tranquility. Next, the official account of a high-end floral design studio casually shared the latest floral arrangement Mrs. Green had ordered, with the caption, "Mrs. Green's taste remains as elegantly understated as ever." Then, photos from an afternoon tea at one of the Green family's top-tier clubs, of course, carefully arranged, were leaked. In one corner of the photo, Mrs. Anna sat alone with a steaming cup of floral tea and an open book, her face calm as she gazed out at the cityscape through the floor-to-ceiling window, seemingly untouched by the storm raging outside. These fragmented pieces of information pieced together a clear message. Mrs. Green was as steady as a rock, and the Green family's inner circle was undisturbed. If Simon Green were truly fighting for his life, how could his young wife remain so unshaken? Almost immediately, the tide of speculation began to shift. The decline in stock prices seemed to slow as well. Evan Green glanced at the public sentiment report and gave me a rare nod. The effect is good. Charles Green, on the other hand, sneered, what a performance. I lay back in my rocking chair, flipping through a book. 200,000 per appearance, no bargaining. Next time you need me to accidentally yawn in front of the camera, it'll cost extra. However, beneath the calm surface, undercurrents were swirling. Charles Green had uncovered something more substantial. The funds from the account that leaked the information were traced back to an overseas shell company, which, in turn, seemed connected to Simon Green's cousin, Bob Green. Bob had always held a nominal position within the group but harbored significant ambitions, nursing a long-standing grudge against Simon for keeping him suppressed. As for Lucy's sudden appearance, although the clues had been deliberately erased, one of Charles Green's friends, who frequented underground bars, had once seen Lucy meeting with a mysterious man at an extremely discreet private club. The man's silhouette strongly resembled Bob Green's personal assistant. When this news reached Evan Green, his eyes turned icy. It's hardest to guard against a thief within the family, he spat, his voice laced with a chilling coldness. Bob Green, he's grown impatient. Just as Evan Green and Charles Green were preparing to focus their efforts on dealing with Bob Green, a more direct and humiliating provocation arrived at the doorstep of the Green residence. No sender's name, an exquisitely wrapped gift box, opened. Inside was a brand new, cheap work uniform made of rough fabric, washed until it was faded, with the logo of Anna's previous company, the one where she had nearly worked herself to death from overtime, still printed on the chest. On top of the uniform lay a printed note, you put on quite a show, but even if a pheasant sticks a few feathers on itself, it can't turn into a phoenix. You won't last long in Mrs. Green's position. If you know what's good for you, take your wages and crawl back to the mud where you belong. Otherwise, face the consequences. A blatant threat, dripping with contempt for Anna's background and past. This was clearly not Bob Green's style. He was more insidious and wouldn't resort to such crude methods. This felt more like Lucy's handiwork. She was using this to remind Anna of her stand-in status, poking at the wounds she least wanted to revisit, forcing her to leave on her own. When Charles Green saw the uniform and the note, he exploded on the spot, grabbing the box as if to smash it. Put it down, I said, my voice calm. He froze mid-action, glaring at me angrily. How can you stand this? Evan Green picked up the note, studying it carefully, his eyes icy. She's trying to provoke you, Aunt Anne, and testing our reaction. Kevin Green's little face flushed red with anger. How evil, don't be afraid, Aunt Anne. I walked over and took the box from Charles Green's hands. My fingers brushed against the familiar uniform, the rough texture of the fabric evoking memories of that bleak, exhausting past. The cold floor of the break room. The glaring message on my phone screen, is the PPT revised yet? And the bank balance that never exceeded 4 digits. A cold sting of memory pierced a certain part of my heart, but only for a moment. I lifted my head and looked at the 3 brothers. Angry, I asked, Charles Green, obviously. Evan Green frowned. This is a provocation. Kevin Green nodded vigorously. So angry. Good, I said, curling the corner of my mouth slightly before casually tossing the box onto the coffee table with a loud clatter. She wants to see us angry, to see us lose our composure. What do we do then? Charles Green fumed. What do we do? I walked over to the floor-to-ceiling window in the sunroom, gazing out at the meticulously maintained garden, my tone as casual as if I were discussing the weather. She gave me an old uniform, to remind me how miserable my past was. Then I turned around, facing their gazes, some angry, some confused, some worried, and said slowly, give her a coffin, to remind her that her future will be even worse. The study fell dead silent. Charles Green's mouth hung open as if he'd been choked. Evan Green's pupils contracted sharply, and the fingers tapping his knee abruptly stilled. Kevin Green stared at me blankly, his deer-like eyes wide with shock. Aunt Anne. Kevin's voice trembled with uncertainty. I ignored him, my gaze fixed on Evan Green. Bob Green wants the Green family in chaos, doesn't he? Lucy wants to trample me back into the mud, doesn't she? I walked over to Simon Green's massive mahogany desk, my fingers tracing the cold surface. Then let them see. I raised my eyes, my gaze devoid of warmth, filled only with an undisguised, thoroughly provoked cold annoyance. Just how heavy this table they're so desperate to overturn really is. Behind his glasses, Evan Green's eyes lit up with an astonishing intensity. He understood. Charles Green also caught on. his red hair seeming to stand on end with excitement. You mean, make some big moves? I nestled back into my rocking chair, picked up the half-read novel, and my tone returned to that signature laziness. Moves so big that the rats hiding in the gutters will scare themselves to death. Make that Lucy, White Lotus, wilt completely. Save her from bouncing around all day, annoying. The sunlight streamed through the glass dome, warming me. I turned the page. Lying flat is the ideal, but if anyone dares to smash my bed, then don't blame me for nailing their coffin shut, even while lying down. 100,000, gotta pay more. Continued. The sunroom was so quiet you could hear the leaves rustling outside in the wind. My words, give her a coffin, still hung in the air. Charles Green was the first to freak out. Anna, are you crazy? His eyes widened like copper bells. Murder is illegal. Evan Green adjusted his glasses, the lenses reflecting light so you couldn't see his eyes, but his voice remained steady. Auntie Anna, what do you mean? Kevin Green's face turned pale with fear, and he tightly gripped the arm of my rocking chair. Auntie Anna, don't be impulsive. I slowly turned another page of my book, without even lifting my eyelids. What are you thinking? The rule of law, the coffin I mentioned. I paused and closed the book. Is Simon Green's coffin fund? Charles Green, what the hell? Evan Green's eyes flashed behind his glasses, as if he had caught onto something. You mean, father's inheritance, the prenuptial agreement. I reminded him, the one as thick as a brick. It's clearly written, I, Anna, have no right to touch the core assets of the Green family. But, I looked at the three of them. It also states, after Mr. Simon Green passes away, 30% of all his personal property not classified as Green family core assets, including but not limited to cash, real estate, private collections, etc., will be inherited by me. The remaining 70% will be divided equally among the three of you. Evan Green sharply inhaled. Clearly, he remembered this clause but had never paid it much mind. After all, while Simon Green's personal wealth was substantial, it was merely a drop in the bucket compared to the entire Green empire. What they had their eyes on was always the control of the Green family. Charles Green was still confused. What does this have to do with the coffin, or Lucy? Everything. I picked up the book again, my tone as casual as if we were discussing what to have for dinner. Why did Lucy come back? For money. For the Green family's money. She thinks Simon Green is on his last legs and wants to exploit the emotions of you three biological sons. Or create chaos to fish in troubled waters and take a share. Or maybe even use that child to fight for inheritance rights. But the will and the prenuptial agreement are in black and white, that Lucy, a legally deceased ex-wife with no ties to Simon Green, won't get a single cent. As for that child, even if it really is Simon Green's, they'd have to prove paternity first before even talking about inheritance. The prenuptial agreement also strictly limits the inheritance share for children born out of wedlock, far less than what you three get, so, her calculations were wrong from the very beginning. Her only hope was that Simon Green was delirious before his death, tricked by her into changing the will, or that the Green family would fall into complete chaos, allowing her to take advantage of the situation. Now, Simon Green has woken up, although still weak, his mind is intact. Assistant Jack hasn't left his side. She can't even get close to Simon Green. She's panicking. That's why she's resorting to such underhanded tactics, to either provoke me into leaving or turn you all against me, causing internal chaos first. I glance at the glaringly out-of-place old work uniform on the coffee table. She gave me a work uniform to remind me of my past. Well, I'll remind her. She won't lay a finger on Simon Green's coffin savings. She won't step through the doors of the Green family. Her future is to watch Simon Green live well, watch the Green family remain stable, and watch the three of you. I sweep my gaze over Charles Green, Evan Green, and Kevin Green, grow up day by day and take over the family business, while she, and her son whose father is unknown, are completely out of luck. Is this future coffin big enough? The study falls into silence once again, but this time, the silence carries a clarity. As if the clouds have parted to reveal the sun, the corner of Evan Green's mouth lifts for the first time in a genuinely relaxed, almost appreciative curve, as if he's met his match. Auntie Anna, you've really studied that prenuptial agreement thoroughly, obviously, I say, lying back down, for a monthly salary of 100,000. If I didn't read the contract carefully, I wouldn't even know if I was being sold out. Charles Green scratches his messy red hair, glances at me, then at the work uniform, and finally blurts out, then, what should we do with this piece of junk? It's just bad luck to look at. Keep it, I say lazily. To remind me. I close my eyes. Lying down and making money isn't so bad after all, Kevin Green asks quietly. Then, what should we do now? Do what you need to do, I reply. Evan Green, continue stabilizing the company, especially those old foxes stirred up by Bob Green. Quietly leak the evidence of Bob Green and his assistant's private dealings with Lucy to the shareholder who hates Bob Green the most. Let them fight like dogs. Evan Green nods. Understood. Use others to do the dirty work. Let them exhaust each other. Charles Green. I call his name. Yes. He instinctively straightens his back, as if called on by a teacher. Organize the information you found on that competitor and Bob Green's dirty secrets. I'm not telling you to expose it now. Then what? Wait. I open one eye. Wait until Bob Green and the opponent he's found are at their most arrogant. Wait until Lucy can't resist making another move. I make a gesture of pressing a switch. Take them all down in one go. Let them nail their own coffin shut. Charles Green's eyes light up with a fierce excitement. Got it. Save the big move for later. So satisfying. As for you, Kevin Green, I look at him. Yeah. He immediately stands up straight. Keep an eye on the kitchen. Make sure Monica doesn't burn the calming herbal soup again. I yawn. Also, absolutely no sugar in the cookies. If you add sugar again, I'll use your share of the inheritance in advance to buy insulin. Kevin Green. Got it, Auntie Anna. Her little face scrunched up, but she still nodded obediently. The storm had not subsided, but inside the Green residence, it felt as if there was a backbone holding things together. Evan Green's operations became more precise and efficient. He no longer tried to forcefully suppress all opposition but skillfully guided and divided it. The more Bob Green and his rival jumped around, the more flaws they exposed. He was like the most skilled hunter, patiently collecting evidence of their crimes, waiting for the fatal blow. Charles Green was no longer running around like a headless fly. He reined in his temper and used his connections with all sorts of people to dig up the times, locations, and even vague details of conversations from the secret meetings between Bob Green's assistant and Lucy. The chain of evidence was slowly being perfected. Kevin Green became the most loyal, logistics support, and intelligence officer. He no longer made a fuss but kept his ears perked, watching for any unusual behavior among the household staff. Me. I was in charge of maintaining an aura of serene composure. Under Jack's assistant's unintentional arrangements, I was spotted by passers-by a few more times. Once, at a top-tier art gallery, I was seen, seriously, nodding at an abstract painting with an astronomical price tag, though I was actually watching a little spider diligently spinning its web in the corner of the frame. Another time, at a high-end charity auction, I sat in a corner with an untouched glass of champagne in front of me, holding a book, Postpartum Care for Sows, which Kevin Green had snagged from his country cousin and I used as a prop. With outstanding effect, each exposure silently conveyed one message. Mrs. Green was as steady as an old dog, the Green family's backyard was peaceful, and Simon Green, definitely fine. Miraculously, the stock price stabilized and even began to rise slightly. The shareholders who had been watching from the sidelines saw Evan Green's shrewd tactics, Charles Green's unexpected restraint on the surface, and Mrs. Green's unshakable composure, and their hearts began to lean in their favor. Bob Green could no longer sit still. He and the rival he had enlisted launched their final, desperate attack. A flood of baseless rumors, solid evidence of Simon Green's critical condition, internal strife among the Green heirs, and Mrs. Green is actually a puppet, were wildly circulated. At the same time, they attempted to stage a joint confrontation at the board meeting, pressuring Evan Green to reassess Simon Green's ability to perform his duties and even proposing to temporarily take over some core business operations. The moment of decisive battle had arrived. In the study of the Green residence, the atmosphere was as tense as the low pressure before a storm. Evan Green adjusted his suit cuffs, his eyes sharp as knives. Charles Green clenched his fists, his knuckles white. Kevin Green nervously brought me a glass of water, unsweetened. Everything is ready, I asked. Evan Green nodded. The chain of evidence is complete. The evidence of Bob Green embezzling subsidiary funds, colluding with competitors to manipulate stock prices, attempting to bribe board members, and his collusion with Lucy to disrupt the Green family. It's all here. He patted a thick, encrypted folder. Charles Green grinned fiercely. We've tracked down the IP addresses and transaction records of those online trolls and the scoundrels spreading rumors. We can shut them up and make them disappear anytime. What about Lucy? I asked. Evan Green sneered. She got wind that something would happen at today's board meeting. She's currently, coincidentally, running into the media outside the Green Corporation headquarters with her son. Probably trying to play the role of the long-suffering ex-wife returning and a son craving fatherly love, while also splashing more dirty water on the Green family. Oh, I nodded and picked up the old work uniform that had been thrown in the corner. Let's go. Both Evan Green and Charles Green were stunned. Go, where? The board meeting. I casually draped the work uniform over my arm. Isn't there a big meeting? It wouldn't be right if Mrs. Green didn't make an appearance. You're wearing that. Charles Green's eyes nearly popped out of his head. Evan Green also furrowed his brow. Auntie Anna, what's there to be afraid of? I adjusted the faded collar in front of the gleaming glass window. Didn't she give me this work uniform? Then I'll wear it, to deliver a coffin to her. Top floor of the Green Group, largest conference room. The atmosphere was tense. Several old board members, stirred up by Bob Green, were spitting with rage. Pounding the table and accusing Evan Green of being young and incompetent, they claimed that under his acting leadership, the company's stock price was volatile and morale was low. They strongly demanded the establishment of a temporary management committee, led by Bob Green, to take over power. Bob Green sat next to the head seat, putting on a pained and reluctant expression. Uncles, I'm only thinking of the Green family's century-old legacy. Brother Show is critically ill. The nephews are still young, and although Evan is trying, he lacks experience and can't hold the fort. The conference room door was pushed open. Everyone looked over. I was wearing that out-of-place, faded old work uniform, with the work jacket draped over my arm, and strolled in slowly. Evan Green and Charles Green followed behind me. The room fell silent instantly. All eyes, shocked, disdainful, probing, curious, swept over me like searchlights. Bob Green was taken aback at first. Then a hint of imperceptible smugness and mockery flashed in his eyes. He probably thought I was backed into a corner or here to make a fool of myself. An MS, and a board member frowned. This is a board meeting, I know. I walked straight to the seat reserved for Mrs. Green and sat down, casually placing the work jacket from my arm on the polished conference table as if it were a rag. I'm just here to take a look. I glanced around, my tone as casual as if I were haggling at a market. To see who's in such a hurry to nail the coffin shut for my husband, and while I'm at it, my gaze landed on Bob Green's face, and I gave a cold, faint smile. Deliver a coffin to certain people. Bob Green's face changed. Anna, what nonsense are you spouting? This is no place for you to cause a scene. Cause a scene? I picked up a remote control from the table and pressed a button, aiming it at the large projection screen. The screen lit up. First photo. Bob Green's personal assistant and a heavily disguised woman, though her face was covered, her figure was strikingly similar to Lucy's, at the entrance of a discreet club. Second, bank transfer records between the operator of a financial gossip account and Bob Green's trusted subordinate, partially redacted, but key details clear. Third, a screenshot of financial documents showing Bob Green embezzling funds from a subsidiary. Fourth, a photo of Bob Green in a secret meeting with the head of a rival company, taken from a tricky angle, but faces clearly visible. Fifth, a photo of Lucy and the little boy surrounded by media at the entrance of the Green Group building, with her crying to the cameras. Finally, an audio clip played. Lucy's clear voice was filled with venom. That sickly Simon Green won't last long as we take down those two brats, Evan Green and Charles Green, and make that fool Kevin dependent on me. The Green family will be ours, and that bitch surnamed and, what is she worth? A shabby work uniform is enough to expose her true colors. The conference room fell into a deathly silence. The faces of all the directors changed. Their gazes toward Bob Green were filled with shock, disdain, and fury. Bob Green's face turned as pale as paper. He abruptly stood up, pointing at the screen. It's fake, all of it. This is a setup. Evan Green is behind this. Evan Green rose to his feet. His voice cold as steel. Uncle Bob, the chain of evidence is complete and can withstand any judicial appraisal. You are suspected of embezzlement, commercial bribery, stock market manipulation, and colluding with MS. Lucy to slander and threaten Mrs. Green, as well as disrupting the operations of the Green Corporation. I have already submitted the relevant evidence to the public security authorities and the Securities Regulatory Commission. As soon as he finished speaking, the door of the conference room was pushed open once again. Two uniformed police officers walked in, followed by staff from the Securities Regulatory Commission. Mr. Bob Green, Please come with us to assist in the investigation, the police officer said sternly. Bob Green's legs gave way, and he collapsed into his chair, his face ashen. The police stepped forward to take him away. As Bob Green was being escorted out, he passed by me and shot me a venomous glare, his lips trembling. You. Save your energy, I said, picking up the old work jacket from the table and leisurely dusting off non-existent dust. You nailed your own coffin shut, take care, and I won't see you out. Bob Green was taken away. The conference room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. The directors who had been so vocal earlier now wished they could bury their heads in the table. Evan Green scanned the room, his voice steady and firm. Uncles. The crisis facing the Green Corporation was deliberately manufactured by certain individuals. Now, the tumor has been removed. My father is recovering and will soon be able to take charge again. Until then, I will continue to act as proxy, leading the Green Corporation back on track. I hope we can all work together to overcome this difficult time. The directors exchanged glances, and finally, the most senior among them began to applaud. The scattered applause quickly grew into a warm, enthusiastic round. The situation was settled. Downstairs, Lucy was still crying to the cameras about the Green family's heartlessness, accusing me, the usurping stepmother, of abusing her son, all to gain sympathy. Suddenly, her phone began to vibrate frantically. She looked down, and her face instantly turned even paler than Bob Green's. It was a bank notification. Her account had been frozen. Immediately after, an electronic notice of a lawyer's letter arrived. The Green Corporation was officially suing her for defamation, damage to reputation, and attempted extortion, referring to her attempts to use her child for personal gain. The reporters around her seemed to have received the news simultaneously. Their gazes shifted from sympathy to disdain and morbid curiosity. Microphones and cameras were thrust even closer, and the questions became sharp and relentless. Ms. Lincoln. The Green Corporation just announced that Bob Green has been taken away by the police. What is your relationship with him, Ms. Lincoln? Is it true that the Green Corporation is suing you for defamation and extortion, Ms. Lincoln? Is the child with you really related to Mr. Simon Green? Would you dare to take a paternity test, Ms. Lincoln? Lucy screamed, clutching her head as she tried to push through the crowd, but the reporters had her tightly surrounded. The tragic image she had so carefully crafted instantly crumbled, leaving only disarray and hysteria. The little boy was wailing in fright. Amid the chaos, Green security quickly intervened, separating the reporters and semi-forcibly escorting the mother and son away from the scene. Sunlight pierced through the clouds. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window in the top-floor conference room, watching the farce below come to an end. The rough fabric of my old work clothes chafed against my skin. Evan Green walked over and stood beside me, looking down. It's handled. Assistant Jack will inform father of the outcome. I responded. Charles Green also came over, glaring in the direction where Lucy had been taken away in disgrace, and spat fiercely. Serves her right. He turned to me, his expression awkward, with a hint of respect. Hey, Anna, that shabby work outfit of yours, can't you just throw it away? It's an eyesore. Not throwing it away, I said, draping the jacket back over my arm, keeping it, as work clothes, for when I'm lying flat, comfortable. Evan Green, Charles Green, Kevin Green had slipped in at some point, holding a plate which he presented to me like a treasure. Auntie Anna, try this. Absolutely no sugar, I swear on my honor. On the plate were a few pieces of slightly burnt cookies. I picked one up and popped it into my mouth. Indeed no sugar, just a bit burnt. Not bad, I commented. Kevin Green immediately broke into a wide, toothy grin. Evan Green watched us, then glanced down at the now orderly street below, and let out a long, deep sigh of relief. Charles Green scratched his head and suddenly said, Hey, Anna, tonight, my band is rehearsing new songs. Wanna come listen? I promise, it won't be noisy. I shot him a glance. Not going. Tired. Lying flat is exhausting. I turned, holding my old work clothes, and headed for the door, going home. Sleeping. 1 month later, Simon Green had recovered well and was already able to handle some important documents at home. The Green family turmoil had settled. Bob Green was behind bars. Lucy had vanished without a trace. Rumor had it she took the child back to her bankrupt lover's hometown, too afraid to show her face again. The stock price not only rebounded but hit a new high. Evan Green officially entered the core of the group, his methods becoming increasingly polished. Charles Green's band had actually gained some popularity. His car-smashing past was repackaged into an inspiring story of a rebellious rich kid pursuing his musical dreams, earning him quite a few fans. He still sported that flamboyant red hair, but the way he looked at me was finally less like I was a piece of gum stuck to his shoe. Kevin Green remained dedicated to baking his sugar-free cookies, though the taste was still memorable. Sunroom, I lay on the rocking chair. Covered with a thin blanket, drowsy, Simon Green walked in slowly, leaning on his cane. He had recovered considerably, but his complexion was still pale from his recent illness. He came over and stood beside me, looking out the window. "Anna," he began, his voice low. I responded lazily, not opening my eyes. "This matter, you've worked hard." "Not hard," I said, turning over with my back to him. "Just unlucky. Monthly salary of 100,000, doing the work of crisis PR. Psychological counseling, strategic planning, family mediation, plus image spokesperson. Such a loss." Simon Green was silent for a while. Assistant Jack, who had been following behind him, immediately stepped forward and handed over a document. Simon Green placed the file on the small table beside me. "A new agreement, monthly salary, 1 million, other terms remain unchanged. Sign." I opened my eyes, looked at the agreement, 1 million, per month, to lie flat. I reached out my finger, tapped the cover of the agreement. "The bed needs to be a bigger one." Simon Green, Assistant Jack. I closed my eyes again. The sunlight was warm. This overtime work, worth it. After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.